Who would you like to see come to regional Queensland to perform? 1300 630 222, or you can text through 0487 993 222. And, you know, there have been a lot of big name acts and artists and performers who've been in Australia very recently. You've probably been hearing of people going off to concerts like Pink and Taylor Swift, Blink 182, Luke Combs, and there's even more coming up in the next few months. Psychology expert Dr. Joe Lukens is with me to find out if that, to share with us if it's actually good for our minds to be going to these concerts. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
Maybe good for our mind, but maybe not good for our ears.
Yes, and maybe not our wallets too.
Our wallets,
they do
our
take
voices,
a bit of a hit as well,
they
don't
do. They do. But what makes attending a big concert such a thrilling experience?
I think the very nature of the fact of how big it is, and I know that those who particularly were at the Pink concert on the weekend, you know, that's the biggest crowd, I think, that we've ever had in that stadium. I think I heard someone say, wouldn't it be good if we could get this many to the football games? And I said, I don't know if the football players would appreciate having them all on the field.
Yeah, that's true.
Might get in the way. But we know that it's such a big sensory experience as a sort of collective energy, if you like, which I know sounds a little bit airy-fairy when we say it, but if you go to those concerts, you feel it, you feel the buzz that comes with it and the emotions that people ride through, and they build well on anticipation and getting people ready and acknowledge the crowd and give people reasons to celebrate. So there's lots of reasons it's such a thrill for all of us.
Yeah, there is that lead up, that anticipation, particularly for some of them recently, particularly Taylor Swift and Pink. People have been making bracelets and costumes and sort of going next level when it comes to, you know, the preparation for the concert. How do those large scale concerts sort of foster that sense of community among the people that go along?
Well, it is a shared space, isn't it? And like you say, there's that anticipation before the event that seems to be happening further out than maybe it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So, you know, often you can find Facebook pages or other social media forms of groups of people who are going to the concerts. And so there's all that sort of shared community. And I guess what it does is we've talked before about the psychological benefits of listening to music. So this is ramped up on a big stage. It's music that's familiar to those who go to whatever the concert might be, your chance to sing along with the artist, to see them perform, all of those elements. But I think what makes it such a great community event is it's a shared experience. So for those who went, say, and if we were talking about Pink predominantly today, you know, you can continue the conversations in the school grounds, in the workplaces and so forth about, and everyone's questions that I came in contact with over the last 48 hours was, did you go? How did you find it? You know, so it's that shared conversation.
And it's palpable, isn't it? The emotion, the hype, all of that when you're there, you know, the music, you can feel it in your chest. When I was at the concert on the weekend, and I was there with a little girl who was maybe 8 or 9, and she started crying when Pink came out, and she said, "I've never cried happy tears before." Why do you think that live music has such a profound impact on our emotions like that?
It comes from two places. So there's the physical energy that comes about. So there's no doubt that particularly if you're down there in the Moshpit, you're not sitting in your seat like some of the people up in the stands are. So we know that physiologically there's a lot of changes that happen for us when you go to any kind of physical activity, if you think of a concert as being that. But our emotions really come from how we interpret the world and what we say to ourselves. You know, this is amazing, can't believe she's here. Oh, I love that song. I wonder what she'll play next. Do you think she'll do the acrobatics? You know, whatever it might be that you're thinking. And all of that brings about that energy, and how lovely for that little 8-year-old that you were with. That now she knows you can have happy tears. Happy tears. You were there the first time she had happy tears.
I know. It was very, very lovely. And there is just that shared euphoria.
There is. And we know that we know that mood is contagious. That's probably the best way to describe it. So that if I come into the studio in a particular mood, it's going to rub off on you. And so when you have a large group of people, you know, all just putting their cares aside for a couple of hours, enjoying the experience, it's something they've been looking forward to. So it ticks all those boxes in terms of setting us up for some really helpful and enjoyable positive energy.
Mixed in with a bit of nostalgia, which we love as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's the difference between, say, listening to an album, is that the artist can engage with you, and you know, Pink was a good example of someone who seemed to be able to engage right across the age groups, I think,
Yeah.
you know, watching her perform. So she'd talk to the young kids, she'd talk to the older people, she'd have an in-joke with the parents who would know what she was talking about, you know, all those sorts of things. So you get that sense of connection with the artist.
Yeah, and particularly for Pink, and not all concerts are all ages, but it was an all-ages concert, and there was the full gamut really there. And I heard in some other places down in Brisbane and such, people even went with little babies.
Yeah.
So it's a big experience to share. Is there specific psychological benefits associated sort of with being in the mosh pit or in the front row at a concert?
Oh, well, there's some status. There's some brag status.
There is.
Because I saw someone say that they were in the front row, and all these comments were like, how did you get into the front row? So, you know, then you really are up close and personal. So there's a lot more, I think, that happens in that close proximity, and we see that when people go to really large concerts, so the ones that you might see overseas in the major centres, you know, and you're quite a way back, you know, that physical proximity to the artist does make a difference. It heightens the feelings of excitement and connection, and you really do get immersed in the music because there's no distraction around you other than what's happening around you.
All of the people in your personal space.
Yes. And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to be very comfortable with that, and some people find out that they're not, so that's when you probably need to kind of move yourself back through the crowd a little bit.
Yes, that's why I sat in the stadiums, in the seating. We did have that short-term buzz. Can it bring long-term happiness and improvements to our mental health?
Well, we know that nostalgia does have that for us. So when we think back and we remember, and that's one of the good things, if you've got the photos on your phone or the videos or whatever it is that you've taken to talk about it. And we know that in the psychology space, savouring an experience gives you that added long-term positive psychological benefit. So any experience that we have, but a concert's a great example of it, is if you think back and go, that was so good, what a great night, you know, and you savour that moment, or, you know, think about a particular song that you really liked or whatever it is, savouring the moment is where you get that ongoing long-term psychological benefit.
Dr. Jo Lukens, psychology expert, thank you very much for sharing today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.